Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody into the chambers tonight. I'm sure you didn't know that it was me that was going to chair, but I appreciate you all being here. It's one of the few meetings that I've been able to chair. I will let you know that the mayor, Luc Charbonneau, is online, so at some point you might see him pop up on the screen. But I want to welcome you all of you here and call to order this meeting of the Saugeen Shores Council. It's a regular council meeting. It's Monday, August the 14th, 2025. It's 6:30 p.m. and we're in the council chambers at the municipal office. And the land acknowledgement tonight will be read by Councillor Stack.
Okay. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for their contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the declaration of a pecuniary interest, if anyone has one. Seeing none, then we have additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. I'm not aware of any. Seeing none. Then number 5 on the agenda is the adoption of the regular council minutes from March the 24th, 2025. The recommendation is that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 24, 2025 as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Mayette, sorry, and seconded by Councillor Grace. Is there any discussion about the minutes? All those in favor? The minutes are carried. We do not have any public meetings on the agenda this evening, but we do have 5 people on the open forum sign-up sheet. So I will encourage everyone to adhere to the 3 minutes. There are 5 signed up, and we have 15 minutes for this aspect of the meeting, so 3 minutes. I do have a little timer here. I'll let you know when you have about a minute left, but certainly you're welcome to use the whole 3 minutes if you so choose. First person on the list is Mr. Art Knechtel, former mayor of Southampton. And Mr. Knechtel, the floor will be yours. Make sure that you turn the microphone on at the podium and speak directly into the mic.
It's not on.
It's on already.
Is it on? You can hear me? Sorry, you can hear me now? Okay, the 3 minutes haven't started yet. I'm just getting up here. Okay, you must think I'm a long speaker, and I am. I don't deny that. And I thank you very much, Your Honor, Deputy Mayor Huber and members of the council for allowing me to be here tonight and speak. I don't know whether that's a good decision or bad, but time will tell. I'd like to speak on the cenotaph proposal. I'm very attached to that cenotaph. I remember when it was put in. I don't remember it being erected exactly, but I certainly remember when it was put in. And it was put in by members of the Second World War, and they did a fine job. And I'm emotionally attached to it because 2 members of my family are on there. I'm named after my uncle, Arthur Knechtel, and a second cousin. I have great difficulty then in seeing that changed because it's very sacred to me. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I appreciate the work that the other group has put in. They did a lot of work. They had a good idea in their minds. And Southampton is slow to change. I'm sure council notices that. And there's a lot of history there. So I propose that I was at the meeting with the Legion, and it was unanimously passed to renew the old one. I was at the meeting at the street changes, and the people voiced their opinion. They didn't want it changed. And I see that there's a call for reconsideration, but I know the ad hoc committee has listened to everybody and done a great job and have decided to refurbish the old cenotaph. And I commend them for that. But a horse race is never over until you cross the finish line. So I would hope that council, I have great faith in council that they will accept the recommendation of the ad hoc committee and the citizens of Southampton and the Legion, and renew the project that's already there, just refurbish it. Thank you very much. And I didn't even go to 3 minutes, did I?
No, you had 15 seconds left. It sounded like you were winding down, so I didn't give you advance notice, but thank you, Mr. Nectel.
That's not a hell of a lot, so I'll say thank you.
The next speaker on the open forum list is Dan Frank. And Dan, if you can come up to the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Just make sure you speak right into it.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dan Frank. You'll see me most days down on the beach, especially in the summer, morning, evening, etc. I and other citizens are very concerned about the possibility of an inflatable water park on the Port Elgin beach. The town of Saugeen Shores is prepared to allow more of this public space to be sectioned off and entry restricted to those who have money to pay for admission. The town opposed pay for play venture in the North Shore Park last year. What's the difference between that and what is being proposed here? Same thing. There's no difference, because this is no different than designating the area surplus and leasing it out to a private enterprise that will determine who gets the use of this very public space. The area affected will not only be the footprint of the apparatus, but I suggest the following as well. The area behind the apparatus where people enjoy swimming, which will now be out of sight from the beach. Family watching to see if they're safe, especially between the apparatus and the break wall. There will be a large area around the apparatus that will kind of be unavailable to swimmers. As required in the original presentation, there will be a wide marked off path to the apparatus from the beach, taking up more space in the water. In addition, a 3 meter by 3 meter kiosk on the beach will take up valuable space when you consider lineups and customer activities. Public washrooms and change rooms are very busy already, as we know, and town staff are challenged to keep up with that. By the way, they did a very good job this past summer, I must say. The simplicity of swimming in the waves and building castles in the sand, the simple beach experience will be lost. What about our world-renowned sunsets? Many come to the beach to enjoy the magic and the serenity that the sunset provides without a giant plastic slide spoiling the view. Questions I have, and others, when the water is rough,
Mr. Frank, you have about 30 seconds.
who has the ultimate authority in taking it down? Will it just be deflated and left anchored in the water, or will it be stored? And where? What effect will it have on the daily activities of the Saugeen Shores Life-Saving Club? And they are also host to 2 large events over the course of the summer. What about the jurisdiction of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans? What role do they play in this? If the town really wants this, a calmer body of water, such as Fairy Lake, might be more appropriate. Last point, if there ever was an opportune time for a flash vote on engaged Saugeen Shores, this is it. I encourage, nay, challenge council to post a flash vote before any approvals are given to move this proposal forward, allowing for more public input. Public spaces should be for the public to enjoy for free. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. The third speaker on the list is Bob Pantlin. If you could come up to the microphone, Mr. Pantlin, and again, speak directly into the microphone, please.
How's everybody today? Is that better? Now, I thought we were going to see a bit of a presentation first. We were at something at the town hall. There's no one took over talking down there. And everybody was just, there was a little girl up front and she was taking down names and she didn't know why she was taking down names when we asked her what she was doing. And it was just on and on and on. There was a nice picture of 6 trees and I should have brought my dog down, you know, to see which one he liked. But other than that, I noticed it appears as though some of the scaling on the prints, it didn't look like it was scaled off properly anyways. And the ministry, I guess they'll have the final say of bump outs on 21. But you can't get past the ministry, right?
Okay, on the sheet, you said you wanted to speak about the cenotaph. Are you talking about the High Street
Okay,
project?
okay. When you stop, take a picture of the cenotaph and at night with the cross lit up and everything, and put that in a newspaper or whatever, or on a signpost, and people will point to it and they'll say that's Southampton. It's not something else that somebody's dream or whatever. There's that the street's been there for over 100 years. And now, all of a sudden now, did you get money from the government that you have to spend? Because I'd like to know that too, because it just seems like you want to go all out. And another thing I'd like to know is how many more of these cenotaph meetings are we going to have? No answer? Okay.
The clerk has a comment.
Okay. Hi, through you, Madam Chair. The intention of an open forum is for you to provide council with your opinions and how you feel about an item that is on the agenda. It's not really a back and forth conversation asking questions. You're more than welcome to ask questions. It just council isn't necessarily going to answer them until maybe we get to that point in the agenda.
So we're going to have another meeting?
So the intention of this meeting tonight is for council to receive the recommendations of the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee. And this is again specific to the Cenotaph, not the High Street. Not specific to the High Street work that's being done. So the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee has ended its work. Council is going to consider the recommendation of that committee tonight. I'm not aware of another meeting that is going to be scheduled on this.
Have any paperwork on what's going to happen tonight that they're going to look at?
They have received the agenda for the council meeting, which is available online.
I heard construction already started, so.
This is not about the High Street. It's-
Cenotaph on High Street.
I'm aware of that, but the Cenotaph is being dealt with as a separate decision away from the High Street. Some of the construction may be occurring at the same time, but it's a different project that is being discussed with council tonight, later in the agenda.
I don't understand.
Well, perhaps Mr. Pantolin, you can reach out to a member of council after the meeting, and one of us would be happy to talk with you about what we're going to be talking about on the agenda tonight, and also about answering as best we can some of your questions about the High Street project. Certainly, we've gone past the 3 minutes for your participation.
I'm sharing with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And next up is Rick Matusi.
Sorry, I didn't know the mayor wasn't going to be here, so my preamble is sort of thanking the mayor and the council for letting me speak. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. As you know, I'm a member of the Royal Canadian Branch Legion 155, but I want you to know that perfectly clear that I am not representing them tonight. This is me talking. Saugeen Town Council will be reviewing and voting on a Cenotaph ad hoc committee recommendations for the future of the Southampton Cenotaph and Cross. There is a posting of a letter sent to the town council on Facebook by a representative of the Southampton Citizens Cenotaph Committee, the SCCC. The SCCC does not represent the Royal Canadian Legion. There are some misleading, inaccurate, and incomplete information in the letter, such as, and I quote, "The community support for this initiative has been substantial. During the town's pick, it was 49% in favor of maintaining the existing cenotaph and cross and only 22% for the SCC twin stone column proposal. Also, the Southampton Citizens Cenotaph Committee asked for $125,000 from the town, which will be coming from our taxpayers, and has not disclosed what their vision will cost in total. It seems apparent that the SCCC is asking you to delay your vote on this project as they have even more time to further their agenda. The present Cenotaph and Cross is a humble monument built by our World War II veterans. It is significant to many of the Southampton townspeople, as indicated by many surveys that should remain as present form. The ad hoc committee appointed by the town voted all in favor of the recommendation of option 1, which is to rebuild or restore the existing cairn and cross. The chairman of the Southampton Citizens Committee was part of the committee. Councillor Grace was absent for the vote.
Rick, Mr. Matusi, can you speak right into the microphone? Yeah.
Sorry.
Just,
So the ad hoc committee recommended putting it in place. And unfortunately, the one person wasn't there was Councillor Grace. With the publication of Ralph Lynch's letter representing the SCCC, it is apparent that the SCC has no intention of accepting the ad hoc committee's recommendation to honor the fallen vets. We don't need flashy or new to honor them. Thank you for your time.
thank you, Mr. Matusi. And next up on the open forum agenda is Doug Mahon. Mahon? And again, please speak directly into the microphone.
Hi, my name's Doug Mahone. I also, like Art Necka, was at the meeting at the Legion, at the meeting at the museum, at 2 ad hoc meetings. And I think that's about it. But everybody seemed to didn't want this new cenotaph, the carrying, and to keep the cross. I was part of a group of people that took a petition around to certain people in Southampton, or certain neighborhoods, I should say. And we collected 500 to 600 names. And only about 5 people rejected to sign it. And that was to heighten awareness to what is going on here. And I hope we get to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we were within the 15 minutes. Thanks for helping us out with that, Doug, at the end. And again, Mr. Pantlin, please reach out to a member of council after the meeting and we'll try and help you out in terms of the questions that you have. The next item on the agenda is a delegation, and the delegation is from the Saugeen Shores United Football Club, and I believe that, are there two of you going to speak? Okay, it is Jeff Virgo and Brian. I don't have Brian's last name written down here. Yes, you can introduce yourself. The microphone is yours. And again, please speak directly into the microphone.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Huber and Council. My name is Jeff Virgil, and beside me is
Brian Binning, current president of SSUFC.
again, my name is Jeff Virgil. I was club president for the past 10 years. I've been responsible for minor soccer in Saugeen Shores for that time and speak very highly of the club. And today we're speaking on the Hollywell Park and the fundraising aspect that we're looking at. Just a quick overview. Our programming, what we offer is Timbits, U4 and U6, recreational soccer from the 8s and 10s, house league travel, which we travel all through Grey Bruce, as well as offering adult rec soccer. We offer rep teams that go play in Kitchener-Waterloo all the way down to other city centers. We also provide one of the great programs that we started about 4 years ago, All Abilities Adaptive Soccer Program, which has numerous members, over 35 that are out of Grey Bruce, all the way from Kincardine, Ripley, Owen Sound, Wyerton, and through Hanover and Walkerton. We provide many soccer camps, as well as provide indoor program in the fall and winter. As you can see by our numbers, they have gradually increased as the last 10 years. We are sitting just 890 this year. Out of that 890, only 90 are adults. So a lot of youth soccer players in our town, which is awesome to see. As well as you can see, our COVID year, we were unable to play soccer like many other sports. And again, in 21, we had a season cap per the rules of return to play.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about kind of the growth of the club over time. From the 2016 master plan, the recommended municipal ratio of players to fields is 70 players per one field. As you can see, that just the trend of that graph, and apologies for some of the number quality, but you can see we've well exceeded that ratio of players to fields and are projected to continue to rise in our registration. We're well over 37% over that recommended standard. Looking to just kind of leverage the current assets we have, and we do our best to make sure we're offering soccer to all sorts of groups, but we are currently in a scenario where we can't offer soccer to all the interested parties and capping registration based on field availability. We can just flip this line there. I'm just gonna open this so I can actually see that. I guess I can't see that well after all. Yeah, so some of the field limitations we have right now are with the league policies that we participate in. We have pretty prescribed schedules of when games are, and one of the challenges that presents to us is that we're forcing a lot of our registration players to play a majority of their games away at the U12 and U15 ages, just because we don't have home field availability to those players. That also causes us to come up with solutions, including we currently are renting fields for the municipality of Kincardine. We work with the Southport Church and the Saugeen First Nations just for field and gym availability. And then when available, we do partner with Blue Water District School Board for field usage as well when available. We have great participation, but with that, it certainly does bring challenges for the number of games we can host locally. And we have upwards of 8 teams that are at our Wednesday night games for our U15 age group, and 7 teams at the U12. So we're constantly struggled to kind of make the best of the season for the players without trying to pass on the additional cost to them to travel further for their away games. One of the things we are very proud of as a club is that we are a very affordable soccer program for all ages. We strive very hard to keep registration numbers low and at making it affordable to families and members of the community. And we'd like to continue to keep that opportunity for members.
As you can see, we continue to see growth in our club, especially with World Cup 2026 coming in. There will be more opportunities for us to participate in leagues as well as aspects with generational fan aspects that we'll see. We're going to be looking at creating more adult leagues within Saugeen Shores, as that big thing with adult recreation is important to us as well as the members of our community. And when we get more field access, that equals more players playing, and we can carry on that affordable programming. Skip too fast. What we're really here for today is looking at the lights at the Halliwell fields. One of the things that when I started with minor soccer back in 2010 and then took the presidency around 2014 was starting a strategic planning prospect, making sure we have the infrastructure in place, or making sure as a club that we can help the town or other community leaders and groups to facilitate that. What we're looking for, that estimate is roughly about $350,000 for lighting both fields at the Halliwell soccer pitch. What we have right now, we have saved $104,000 that we could immediately put into this project. What we would like to see from town council is two aspects, is either doing a loan of $250,000 to be paid back in 5 years, or looking at an alternative solution in terms of adding to the budget to be allocated by the town to the park budget. We would, of course, in both aspects, be a lead fundraiser and help offset costs, and again, directly contribute that $104,000. Other initiatives that we've taken in place is that we are essentially taking $5 from every registrant for the next 5 years. So that low estimates is about $15,000. And we have other aspects that we want to make sure that we're not having anybody holding the bag at the end of the time. Again, the big benefits with having two main pitches at Halliwell is, first and foremost, our soccer fields are renowned in Grey Bruce, but also in Kitchener-Waterloo. I've coached women's rep for 6-7 years, and one big aspect that we always got was Halliwell Fields was one of the top tier, as well as JH was one of them too. With the Halliwell Fields, to add in those two main pitches, we add more medium-sized fields that we can offer soccer day and night, providing the lights, hitting that higher target of adult recreation leagues. As I said, we only hit 90 players. King Garden, in comparison, has 150 adult rec players, so we could see that number in the club within a couple of years with lights. Big thing again is green space. We're a big proponent in green space, making sure there is recreational purposes for other user groups such as ultimate frisbee and other aspects with sports and just recreational picnics and such. Another thing we do see is the school soccer tournaments. We can provide more field support and be able to host. And what we see now in baseball, especially at Lamont Sports Pit, is having the baseball tournaments, bringing in that tourism dollar, so the economical value that we can see with adding those two fields as well as getting lights in. We have programs set up and waiting for approval with the Light Up the Pitch, essentially our fundraising goal, as well as aspects that we've provided that we can make that money with sponsorship and fundraising. Again, out of that 500,000, to, I can't read that either. 350, man, I'm over 40 now. 350,000 would be towards the lights. The current key priorities at Halliwell Park, we commend town council for their initiative as well as town staff on getting the washroom facilities at that park, as well as what we would love to see is getting both fields lit in phase 1. As we all know, prices will go up over time. We know that when we build those fields, it's going to be awesome. But then if we do get that money and that green light 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, we're going to tear up that soccer field a bit more too to put those light extensions in. Future recommendations and priorities that we've seen in phase 2 and 3 in the budget is the pavilion and storage building in all one structure. We're going to need places for our nets and soccer equipment. We're going to see that redevelopment parking lot, making sure it's bigger to accommodate influx of games and tournaments, where we could see upwards of, 80 to 100 vehicles at one time at that field, especially when we're doing tournaments. All of a sudden that turnover, all of a sudden you're going 150. And lastly, down the road, always looking for locations for a third field. Sorry. Again, lastly, future outlook. It's something that we've always been practicing and planning throughout the last 10, 15 years, is that continued field expansion, reconfigurations, as we always have to follow under Canada Soccer. We're going to make sure that we provide the best bang for buck for our community, for our youth and our adults, as well as ongoing winter training for indoor soccer, key partnerships with community groups and social groups. And once field construction is completed at Halliwell, we do project to seeing those numbers closer to 950. Again, thank you, Town Council, for allowing us to speak on behalf of Saugeen Shores United FC, the minor soccer program. And thanks again. Any questions? Hope I still have 10 minutes.
10:13 you're at, so you're right on time. I want to thank Jeff Virgo and Brian Binning for their presentation. The normal thing we do with delegations is we refer the item over to staff for further input to come to council. But certainly, are there any questions or comments from members of council? Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and Brian and Jeff, thanks for your presentation. I just want to say thank you for all the great work you do in our community. When you take a look at minor soccer going from 425 kids to close to 900 over 10 years, that's over 100% increase. It's remarkable. Just a tremendous growth within the system, and that's a big job for volunteers to undertake. And so I just want to say thank you for the great work you do. I remember back 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, the Marine Heritage Society in Southampton asked this council for a 10-year loan for $125,000. And Councillor Grace, remember that? And Councillor Matt. And they had that paid off in 3 years, that $125,000. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. You're asking for $250,000 as a loan, which I'm not sure. I think it's a good faith request. I think you're asking for that over 5 years, and it wouldn't surprise me at all that you would pay that back in less than 5 years. I've looked at your fundraising strategy, and I looked at some of your potential sponsors, and it's doable. There's no question about that. And one of the comments was that you talked about and I like to think that this counts. I know it's not in your 10-year capital forecast. I get that. But I remember back when we talked about the 10-year capital forecast, I specifically asked the question, is there room to amend, to adjust to, the 10-year capital forecast, to place projects in there that seem to be good projects that maybe weren't thought of when we did the 10-year capital plan. I think this is one. That's a good one. And we light up our arenas. We light up our ball fields, but why not light up our soccer field? And I think that's only fair. This is a big sport. We had close to 900 players in minor soccer. You're probably going to go over 1,000 over the next few years. So I think this council, my opinion is that we need to work with you, and I wouldn't doubt me. I wouldn't doubt at all that you'd raise that in less than 5 years. You confident? Is that the ask? 250 over 5 years, and are you confident that could be raised over a 5-year period?
Very confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Yep, very confident. Yeah.
And you've been out approaching potential donors already, and
We've been talking to a few over the last few years. I was big in terms of when people were coming to us with sponsorship dollars 3-4 years ago, that I told them to hold off and I was going to come back for a bigger ask.
Have you had some favorable responses over the last 6 months, say, in towards in terms of what you're trying to do?
Yes, very favorable.
Yeah.
From both user groups, social groups, as well as vendors and businesses in Saugeen Shores.
I read in your report that you're looking at a couple of $100,000 donors, $50,000 donors, $25,000 donors. And have those presentations begun? Like, have you started to talk to those potential donors?
We've only had soft talks with those potential sponsors and
Mhm.
donors.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of come to town council first to
Right.
to put in our pitch and go from there.
Right. Well, I support this initiative. I think that, it was, of course, as you know, I was heavily involved with Lamont Sports Park. And that committee raised $2 million. The community stepped up to the plate, old term. But I think that minor soccer people across this community and others, corporate donors, will also step up to the plate and donate to this worthy cause. So I'm one vote, but I hope this council will support your request, because I think it's a fair request, and I just have a lot of confidence you'll pay it back quickly. So
Appreciate that.
thank you.
Stepping up to the plate, you did use the expression about your pitch. So
I had to
you've
do
got a
that.
soccer reference in there too. I think this is really a timely request because, you know, the Helliwell Park Master Plan is just getting started and there's a couple of phases there. So there's always, in my opinion, room for some really great community participation and partnership. I think the CAO wanted to add a couple of comments for context.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through you, I just wanted to note that and thank Brian and Jeff for the presentation tonight, and note that staff are meeting with both of these individuals with the intent of bringing a report back to council on the April 28th agenda. With that decision, then we'll know how we want to move forward with the tender for Helliwell Park. So council will have this in front of them in a couple weeks' time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I think Councillor Davinsky has a comment or a question.
Yes, thank you both. Jeff, Brian, thank you very much for your presentation. Through you, Madam Mayor, to either Frank Burrows or Matt Prentice or whoever, if we put up all the lights, what's the maintenance cost of the lights on an annual basis, ballpark? Do we know?
I think maybe that's a question that can come back on the 28th with a more detailed response. So it's a good question to have posed, but I think it requires a little bit of detective work. I'm getting a
Okay,
nod from
that's
over there.
fine.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you. The other thing I will say, I will echo the Vice Deputy Mayor. I'm in support of this. As soon as I saw it, you're willing to put the money in if we would just help out. To me, that's a gift horse. That's one of those gift horses. And I hope that the town will see fit to support this. I certainly do. Thank you.
Councillor Mike, excuse me, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Deputy Mayor. Great presentation, guys, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. When you mentioned that your space is limited on some of the available pitches, I didn't hear you mention anything about Pearson Park or even the CAW. They have a soccer pitch. Are you able to utilize all the facilities that are available in Saugeen Shores?
So yes, Councilor, when we use JH Pearson as well as Helliwell. CAW, we haven't been able to use for 13 years now, 14 years, I think. That we've tried every direction, in, out, up, down, side to side. So, yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor Stack?
Just to make sure we use a soccer reference, I hope this joke isn't too offside. So I just want to say I support, like, I think this is a great investment, fully supportive. And just to sort of recognize the volunteer effort. So when I first moved to Port Elgin, my first 2 summers, I coached the littlest kids. I think they were 3 and 4, and it was the most exhausting job I've ever had. So I just think it's great what you guys do and what all the volunteers do. So I think this is a great community initiative. Thanks.
So again, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Brian. And it has been referred to staff, and as we've been told, we can expect more information to come back to us on April the 28th. So we'll see you then.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I've been asked to jump back on the agenda to amendments, so to enable perhaps a little change in order. So I just will look to the clerk for the proper way to do that. And the intention is to have item 9.5, which is the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee report, move up a little bit closer on the agenda. Is that the gist? So can you provide some guidance on how we can do that now?
Certainly through you, Madam Chair. It is appropriate just to ask by consensus, and council can adjust the order.
So I would, okay, so I would ask for consensus for us to move 9.5 to the top of the number 9 agenda item, which is a report of municipal officers and committees, and that's moved by Councillor Davinsky, seconded by Councillor Grace. All those in favor? The mayor's vote has been noted. So we've adjusted the agenda. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for the suggestion from one of the members up here. So we will move on now to 9.5, which is the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee Report and Recommendations. On December the 16th, 2024, Council approved the creation of a Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee whose primary goal was to review the 4 options presented in the RJ Burnside report and provide Council with recommendations for the revitalization of the Southampton Cenotaph. The report before us tonight confirms these final recommendations. And I have a recommendation that the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee final recommendations report be received for information and referred to staff for implementation of the recommendations of the committee. Mover, seconder before we discuss? Yes, so can I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Stack. So I'll just, Dawn and I, the clerk, Dawn Middleholtz and I, we kind of went back and forth on who would speak to this. The report is before us. I chaired that committee, so let me just pull it up here and make some comments and then open it up for questions from members. So the recommendations, we had the 4 options that were in the Burnside report were before us, and the recommendation from the committee is to go with option 1, which was rebuild or restore the existing cairn and the cross. And we went further than that and did very specifically include in the recommendations some comments about following the town's procurement policy. And during the meetings, it was talked about having the plaques that are on the cairn professionally cleaned, and also having an additional plaque with the names that are missing that should be up there on the cairn. And we were very much more in line with maintaining rather than restoring. So, but the idea was option 1 was the chosen one. We went further than that, though. We felt that the landscaping on the traffic island, so behind the installation that's there right now, that landscaping should be rejuvenated. We also wanted to take advantage of the potential for additional space adjacent to the Cenotaph via the inclusion of 4 curb extensions at that intersection. And so then using those curb extensions and the actual intersection, we could create a bigger space that represented the Cenotaph. So the recommendation suggests about a surface treatment in the actual intersection, might be interlock brick or it could be stamped concrete. We didn't get into design. That wasn't part of our mandate. And then on the curb extensions, we wanted to recommend, and we have recommended, the movement of the mosquito bomber interpretive storyboard plaque, which is currently in George Marion Park. That plaque tells the story of the Dominion Plywoods factory in Southampton's contribution to the plywood that was needed to build the mosquito bomber, which was a very successful airplane during the Second World War. We recommended to move that to a location closer to the cenotaph, perhaps on one of the curb extensions, and also to have a replica made of the Women in the Military interpretive storyboard plaque, which is located, there's one located outside the Plex entrance during the season. We wanted to have a duplicate of that made and also located close to the Southampton cenotaph, and to have benches installed on the curb extension so that people could sit down, take a moment. There was no potential to encourage people to actually go out to the cenotaph and to put a bench there. The space that's available on the actual traffic island is not conducive to any kind of accessibility. So that was not an option for us. So the bench and putting some elements close by would give people a chance to get up close with the cenotaph in a way that was much safer. We also talked about a memorial wall or a commemorative wall, which would include the names of people who had served. So on the actual cenotaph, it's people who lost their lives, but a memorial or a commemorative wall could include the names of people who had served. In Port Elgin, they're going to be installing this type of feature in Cenotaph Park this year, I believe. So we felt that that was something that might contribute to a good addition to our cenotaph. And again, the placement of it adjacent to the existing cairn and cross on the island on perhaps a curb extension would mean that people on the sidewalk would be able to literally get up close to it, and potentially, you know, a great grandchild of someone who had served could actually touch their grandparents' name on the commemorative or memorial wall. So the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee did recommend option one, but we went a little bit further than that with suggesting ways to enhance the space in that area. So I believe I've captured all of the elements that were in the recommendation that's coming from our committee. We met a number of times. They were interesting meetings. We actually had lots of people come out for our meetings, which was good. And I now open it up to any comments or questions. And certainly Councillors Davinsky and Councillor Grace were on the committee with me from council. So if either of you want to contribute, we had 4 members of the public. Former Mayor Mike Smith served on the committee. A member of the public, John Willits, was involved. Harry Masmanian, I hope I got your name pronounced properly there, Harry. He's out in the audience, the current president of the Legion in Southampton, and Connie Barker, another member of the public. There were 7 of us on the ad hoc committee. Anyway, Councillor Grace, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some preliminary comments. I want to thank everyone who provided input, suggestions, ideas, and participated in surveys and public engagement throughout this entire discussion period. I want to thank Legion members for all of their dedication and hard work throughout the year to support the Legion, but particularly at Remembrance Day, when they lead town residents in showing their gratitude to our veterans for their sacrifices. I also want to thank those who participated in the previous Cenotaph Citizens Committee for their research and suggestions, and to all who contributed funds for that Cenotaph project. I appreciate the letter from Mr. Lynch, which is contained in our communications section of tonight's agenda, especially offering to provide the Southampton Community Cenotaphs Committee's research and contacts for any future needs the town may have. It's inspiring and heartwarming to know that so many of our residents care so deeply about Southampton's memorial to those who sacrificed so much for our nation and global security. With regard to the recommendations tonight from the committee, our clerk's report outlines the process, and our deputy mayor just summarized the process of what happened in those committees and what the final recommendations are. I believe the process was democratic. There was extensive separate public consultation on this issue during the High Street construction debates of last summer, with in-person meetings and online public engagement and a survey led by the town. And then in November, the town's engineering consultant came back with a recommendation to move ahead with restoring the existing cairn and cross. Even so, council voted to establish the ad hoc committee, whose report we're discussing tonight. As the deputy mayor mentioned, this committee consisted of members of council and the public, met 5 times to discuss the 4 options presented to the public in 2024, and comes back tonight to council with their recommendations. Whether you agree with the conclusions of the committee or not, this result, I believe, came from a democratic process that must be honored. The final recommendations expand upon the original option 1 of restoring the existing cairn and cross by locating existing interpretive plaques of local military importance that were created by our Municipal Heritage Committee to be moved near to the cenotaph area. In addition, it's recommended to include further elements to honor Southampton and Saugeen First Nations veterans, including a proposed memorial or a commemorative wall. These new elements will add to a much beloved site of honor. Therefore, I support the final recommendations of the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee.
And thank you, Councillor Grace, especially for adding in Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. I neglected to mention that, but we were, during the ad hoc committee proceedings, we were always thinking of including both communities in whatever we came up with. Mayor Charbonneau has a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me all right? Oh, maybe you can hear me. Maybe I'm too loud, am I? I'll speak softly. I just want to say thank you to the members of the committee, to yourself, Deputy Mayor Huber, the members, Councillor Grace and Councillor Davinsky, and each of the members of the public. I appreciate the work that you all have done. I know this has been a challenging question, and that many people in the community have passionate feelings about the cenotaph, as they should. And it's been a long process with a lot of citizens. I think it's really important just to note a lot of citizens of good faith who have looked at this, have had good ideas. Some wanted to do more, some have wanted to do less, but everybody, no matter what their viewpoint, is somebody who I know loves Southampton and loves the cenotaph and wants the very best for the community. And I really appreciate all of that input. And I just, I think what we've ended up with here is a good compromise. We've got, obviously, the community has spoken loudly and said that they care a lot about the monuments that are there. And so we'll keep those monuments, and we'll add some things in an appropriate way to make sure that all who served and sacrificed are honored there, and really make the space as special as we can, and to do honor to those folks who served in the best way we can. I always say I've participated in Remembrance Day in Southampton many times, and it's the most beautiful place. Well, maybe when the wind's blowing 100 miles an hour and it's snowing, maybe not so much, but most times it's the most beautiful place anywhere to have a Remembrance Day ceremony, and I know it'll continue to be that way with these with the work that's going to happen here on High Street and at the Cenotaph. So anyway, thank you again to the committee, and appreciate all the work. I will support the recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I too will support this. I have one question to ask, and that is, the names we have on the cairn are names of people who gave their lives in giving us freedom. Are those names also going to be on the memorial wall so that people could have access to them at the I don't want to call them bump outs, the extended intersection there.
Curb extensions.
Curb extensions, that's what it is. Bump outs. in any event, are those names also going to be accessible for those that want to visit, see a name, as you indicated, touch a name, and so on, besides being on the care?
We didn't get into design at all. However, someone who served would be on a commemorative wall, as well as potentially being someone on the cairn. So definitely.
Okay, that's all I had to hear. I thank everyone who took part in the ad hoc committee, those that came out in the public and just offered their concerns. I think this is going to be a wonderful place when it is ready, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to thank you, Diane, for the great work you did with chairing the meetings, and Councillor Dubinsky and Councillor Grace. So thank you for serving on that committee. I think it's a job well done, and like the mayor, I think it's a really good compromise. I received an email from a very prominent citizen today. And I'll just read: the inclusion of some wonderful commemorative pieces at the corner will make it a very special place to recognize those who served their community in past conflicts. Like many things, it may not be perfect, but the final result will be something that our town can be very proud of. And I agree with that. I look at some of the changes that are being made here, and I think it's just one step above what we originally heard from the consultant. And so I think these are really positive changes. So I think it's a good compromise. I just want to thank the committee of 7 for doing a really, really good job here. Yep.
Councillor Myatt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I was hopeful that perhaps we were going to take the opportunity and do something really special with this and reimagine it. And certainly, I'm not as long in the community as Mr. Knechtel is here to remember back when it was built, but I'm closing in on 30 years in the community, and not necessarily in Southampton. I live in Saugeen Township. I'm a member of the Legion. I have relatives who served in the Second World War, and I'm a member of the Legion in Port Elgin. And in fact, shortly after I arrived here in Port Elgin, I was asked by former Reeve Harry Tatey to help with the reimagining and the relocating of the Port Elgin cenotaph. And we organized a work party, and we made that project happen. And it's, if you've probably all been to the Port Elgin cenotaph. It's a lovely spot, and it pays homage to those who served and in both wars, all three wars actually, Korean War as well. And the important part that I hoped was going to be recognized is that even though the cross is a distinct and has been pointed out tonight, a historical and sort of synonymous with downtown Southampton, there are very few cenotaphs in Canada or around the world. I've been to a couple overseas, particularly in Holland, where there are Canadian cenotaphs and memorials throughout the country, and very few of them pay homage to a particular religion or religious symbolism on theirs. And not that it's inappropriate, but it's not commonly used. And I was hoping that at the beginning, when this process started, that we were going to be able to bring it more in line with standards that are used around the world, and certainly in Canada. I recently was at the War Memorial in Ottawa, and it has very little in the way of symbolism for any particular religion. And I understand that when this one was built, the Christian religion was much more prominent in everyday life in this community and in all of Canada. And those are the days when residential schools were prominent in the country as well, which are, also religiously founded. And I'm going to support what the committee came out with, because as was pointed out by Councillor Grace, it was a democratic process, a rigorous process, as the mayor pointed out. There was lots of opportunity for input and the input was heard and received and the results are what they were. But I'm honestly just a little disappointed that we couldn't have made something really special, something really historic. I know that change is synonymous with a four-letter word in Southampton sometimes, and that preserving what was there is what's turned to be the important thing here rather than doing something really special. But that's the way it's going to go, and I'll support what the committee come up with. But I still stand somewhat disappointed that we didn't take the opportunity to do something special here. Thank you.
Councillor Stack?
Can I just ask for a clarification what we mean by the distinction between maintain and restore?
Well, the option, thank you for the question. The option that was before us from the Burnside report was rebuild or restore the existing cairn and cross. I will say that the committee did have a number of discussions about both the cairn and the cross. The cross, quite honestly, is metal and plastic. So it's not, the structure is plastic with metal. So the option one, rebuild or restore, the committee, there was discussion about what that really means. And so the idea of maintaining what is there, I will be quite forthright and honest that I believe that 5 years down the road, I hope, maybe a little bit longer, there will be another bigger discussion about what's appropriate, and that there will be the creation of something probably not potentially in this location. We weren't there yet though, and we were limited with the space that we had, and the traffic island is quite small. So the idea of a grand gesture, I don't discount that at all. However, the space that we had available to us at the moment is quite limited, and it's not accessible in the sense that there's not enough room to maneuver someone in a wheelchair out there, and with curbs, there'd have to be mountable curbs. It was just not the kind of space that could encourage people to get out there and linger, if you will. So the idea of certainly we were very specific about not rebuild. And so the restore, maintain is just, taking into account what's there. And, I feel very confident that the general idea was that, maintaining it will be an important thing to do right now. But in the future, there may be another opportunity to have another discussion roll out perhaps in a different way than it did this time. And also the idea of adding to the space adjacent to it, I really hope that that creates an excitement about what potentially could be in a space not unlike what's in Port Elgin, where it's actually like a little parquet. There's room in there. You can actually, walk in and be part of the experience. We don't have that ability at that intersection. So I hope Councillors Grace or Councillor Davinsky can add in if they want to, but it was not so much about rebuilding, but just taking care of what's there. And, potentially in the future, there would be another opportunity to do something perhaps there or perhaps somewhere else. Councillor Stack, did you have another comment or question?
Sorry, I thought my microphone turned off. This is probably a foolhardy question. Can we not just not you? And I'll just be sort of honest, as someone who's not religious, I'll put that gently. I think, have we discussed just not using the cross? Is that something that we?
Well, the item before us is to accept the recommendations from the ad hoc committee, receive them for information and refer it to staff for implementation. We didn't get into design or anything like that. So I I think that it's important, and I said this during one of the meetings, every grave that I've visited in Europe that was for a Commonwealth soldier, there's a cross on that grave, on the grave marker. So
Right.
the cross represents something different to a number of people, but we're just receiving the recommendations for information, and then it's going to staff.
Yeah, that's fine, but like, let's just be very clear. These are not just recognitions of World War II. When soldiers die, they die from a variety of religions. So I think I hear the point on World War II, but I just think it's, like, I'll be more blunt. Like, I think it's a bit dismissive to suggest that because in Europe they have crosses on symbols, that's a sufficient reason to not explore. I understand the recommendations and we'll have a report from staff, but I think moving forward, and if it's in 5 years, that's when it is, but we have to recognize that what Canada was in, 35 years ago, I'll say, is not what Canada is today. And I think it's important to recognize that there are more people in the military serving the country that don't subscribe to Christianity. And I think it would do the community a disservice to suggest that because it was the way it was in the past, that's the way it should be going forward. I know that's not what you're saying, but I think I'll be very clear that that's my position on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, we do have a recommendation before us then, that the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee final recommendations report be received for information and referred to staff for implementation of the recommendations of the committee. That has been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? One opposed? That's carried. Okay, we'll go back to 9.1 now, which is the Splash City Fun Park Delegation follow-up. This report has been prepared to provide council with a follow-up from the December the 9th, 2024 delegation regarding the operation of an inflatable water park at the Port Elgin Main Beach. I will call upon the CAO, Cara Van Mile, to present the report. Sorry about that. And should I do the recommendation first? Yeah, okay, we'll have the CAO make the presentation first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the introduction tonight. And I believe that we have Romaine and Claude online, and I don't know if clerks can make them visible on the screen because I think they are available to answer questions from council tonight as well. So as the Deputy Mayor introduced, this report provides an update and recommendations following the December 9th, 2024 delegation, which was proposing an inflatable water park at the Port Elgin Main Beach. Ramin and Claude are with a company called Splash City Fun Park, Inc., and it's looking to operate the park, as I said, at the Port Elgin waterfront. And I apologize that I'm not the expert on this tonight, but the Weebit and the Waterways is the design and installation and training system that will be used that they're proposing. The report also notes that this installation has happened in other municipalities: Barrie, St. Mary's, Muskoka, Hamilton, Push Lynch, Orillia, Port Colborne, Mount Albert, and Milton. Staff reached out to those municipalities and 6 references were provided, and feedback provided from those municipalities is in Appendix A. The preferred location of the installation is east of the breakwall in Port Elgin at the main beach, as I mentioned, and a map is in Appendix B. With regards to the approval process, applications have been submitted to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and Transport Canada. This area, and I just want to be clear on this part, is not owned by the town of Saugeen Shores. So while there will be an agreement with the town, the proponents do need to have an agreement with the federal government or the MNNR, provincially, whichever they're directed to by the federal government. So far, the DFO has indicated that they have no concerns with the proposal. Further, the proponent has engaged with an environmental consultant to seek further information on water depths, habitat analysis, ecosystem reports, and familiarity with the area. Water depth, I mentioned, is one of the things that they're looking at. There is sort of, as was mentioned at the delegation, an ideal depth. So that is being researched right now. And once it has been determined, it could impact the proposed location as shown on Appendix B. What's being asked of the town is for access to the location in the water, use of the washrooms, parking and temporary kiosk and storage facility. If an agreement is advanced, staff, as we have done in other instances, do not intend to have dedicated parking, beach space, or access included in that agreement. There would be no preferred access. And we're also looking at the beach house building, if suitable, could facilitate the temporary storage and the ticket kiosk. In their proposal, they've noted that there will be approximately 8 to 12 staff, including lifeguards, which will be available at the property or at the facility, sorry. With regard to public input and feedback, with regards to the timing, again, the report noted that the goal is to have an agreement signed by the end of April if we are going to do this pilot first year in 2025. And it's staff recommendation that public feedback, as well as an assessment of the operations, would be done after the first year and brought back to council for consideration as if there was going to be future year agreements in place. With regards to insurance, the report outlines the minimum 5 million general liability limit, also talks to a number of supervision and safety protocols that are being discussed with the proponent. As I noted, the timeline is if we are to achieve operation in 2025, would be 2 agreements, one between the proponent and the DFO or Transport Canada for the installation and operation of the park in the water. The second agreement would be between the proponent and the town, and this would be for what I'm calling the land logistical requirements. As I noted, the target is to advance those agreement by the end of April. So the recommendation to council tonight for consideration is to authorize those next steps related to the town's portion of the agreements with Splash City Fun Park, Inc. And I'm happy to take any questions.
The clerk would like to contribute.
I would just like to say, Ramin is an attendee and he's online. Ramin, the deputy clerk is going to send you an invitation for you to be promoted to panelist so that you can respond to questions of council. When she sends that through, can you please click accept so that you can join the regular meeting? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for comments, questions from members of the committee. Councillor Davinsky, then Councillor Grace.
I have several here. And did you say we have the proponents online?
Sorry, the proponent is online. We are just trying to get him promoted to panelist. We sent him an invitation to go to panelist. We just need him to accept that so he can address your questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, in the report itself, under water depth, we have contact information for a reliable consultant was provided to the proponent, I assume by us, to obtain current water depth readings, which have not been shared with the town yet. And I would like to know if those measurements have been taken, and do we know what we're dealing with here now?
Through you, Chair. Again, apologies that I'm not the lead on the file, so I'll do my best to answer the questions tonight. But I believe when the proponents presented and when they're available online, they can confirm this. I think they were looking for a depth of around 6 to 8 feet. So again, what's going to happen is the consultant is going to look at where that is available in relationship to that desired location of east of the break wall. And so that map that's provided in the report is where they would like to be, but that needs to have that depth. So it may shift depending on where the depth is.
Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully they will be online shortly. you mentioned that the ticket kiosk will be part of a building that's already existing. Is that correct? Hold on.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I think we're trying to see if the boathouse can accommodate the facility just to minimize how many kiosks, containers, storage facilities we have on the main beach. So we have other groups that use that space as well. And right now we're looking to see whether or not the boathouse could accommodate it, sort of to consolidate it all in one facility.
Deputy Mayor, if I may continue. A concern about, the report also talks about concern about recruitment may put a strain on the resources. In other words, we're talking about lifeguards and so on. What with us getting ready to open the aquatic center, I think there is a definite push and pull there that we have to deal with. And will it put us meaning the town, into a competing situation for potential employees? And this is just an opinion I'm after here. I mean, it would be good for the employees, but it could be challenging for us. And I'm just wondering.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's a concern. That's why we included it in the report tonight. The Aquatic and Wellness Center is slotted to be open in November, but I acknowledge that we already have a lifeguard program through our existing Centennial pool. So it is a worry, but we won't know the impacts until it happens, right? So I don't have a crystal ball on that one. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm shooting these at you just tonight, and this isn't your bailiwick, but I understand. I'm sorry for this. Will there be public input before the park is set up if we get that far?
Thank you for the question. And I can appreciate, I've heard from a few members of council on that piece. And at this point, our recommendation to council is similar to what we did with the Dogs on the Beach bylaw, where we do a pilot for 1 year. We assess the program both from the public standpoint and from the town standpoint for operation. And we bring it back to council for consideration if we were going to do a multi-year agreement or future year agreement.
Okay, and these questions I don't think would be for you, but how much are the tickets? I think they're about $28 at other places, $28. And how long? Once you buy a ticket, how long are you allowed to be on that? And maybe the owners, if we ever join them, would have that.
Thank you for the question. My knowledge doesn't come from the owners, so they're welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. It comes from my own kids having used it in like similar facilities. Is usually around the $25 to $30 mark, and it's a couple of hours in length that it allows you to participate on the facility.
Thank you. And then after that couple of hours, they have to leave so others can go on, I take it. Okay, my comment is, well, I'm still on the fence with this one. I think advancing this before the end of April is too fast, at least in my mind, for the water park in 2025. And I hate like heck to do it so we can find out what we did wrong over an entire summer and really perhaps send some people elsewhere rather than staying on the Port Elgin beach. I don't know how much towel space they will take. People could say, yeah, but what about the CCV? The CCV doesn't take any towel space. But this could potentially take towel space with a line waiting to get out there and so on. Some of the other examples in other communities are not a beach, quarry and enclosed water, if you will. So personally, myself, I'm still on the fence with this one. I thank you. And should anybody show up, I think we have
Well,
somebody on.
yeah, I know, but we'll move on to let other
Sure.
members of council ask questions, and perhaps one of them will repeat the items that needed clarification. Councillor Grace is next, then the Vice Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Stack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I have a couple of reasons why I am not going to vote in favor of this proposal. I don't think we need this attraction. We have a wonderful beach. We have a number of wonderful beaches. And while this would provide a different type of recreational experience, I have concerns about the safety of it being located on a Great Lake, even though there is the break wall, which is separating it from open water. I noted that from what I could see, all of the examples of existing examples that were given, except for Port Colborne, all of the other examples staff provided are on inland bodies of water. So, I looked up Hamilton. Well, that's on the Binbrook Conservation Area. And those, I think, are very different matters than being right on Lake Huron. And, I don't know about the patterns of wind and waves and stuff in Port Colborne, but I know we do get very windy, rough weather here. So I'm also concerned about a point that Councillor Davinsky raised, and that's the conflict with our existing municipal summers staff, which is admitted in the report as being a concern by our own staff. And I think we need to listen to that. There appears to be a plan for fairly stringent insurance and safety requirements that would be included in the agreement. But I've already asked our solicitor for advice on this, and she is looking into it. But to me, what came to my mind is this a matter of within negligence law, strict or absolute liability, which means that if there's an inherently risky situation, that the plaintiff doesn't have to prove that the defendant was negligent or at fault. I don't know the answer to that, but if council approves that, I would be asking our town attorney to advise on that issue. I have concerns about more congestion on an already busy beach. And I found, as well as the change in atmosphere, this is a charming classic beach. And I also found the arguments that Mr. Frank presented tonight in open forum, as well as another resident who wrote to council earlier about some points that I hadn't previously considered, but that it's not just necessarily the footprint of the park in itself, but also the pathway, the area around it that may be affected. And so the required marked off path from the beach to the apparatus. For me, the bottom line is I don't think we need this to attract tourists. People can have lots of fun at the beach without paying an entrance fee for this exclusive activity. So thank you very much.
Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I put a lot of thought into this last December. I did ask some point blank questions about water depth and a few other questions I had, and I'm still lukewarm today. I think that the Port Elgin Beach is not all, in my view, is not all that large. It's not, there's space there, but I just question, I just question the validity, the importance of providing what do they call it, Splash City Fun Park at Port Elgin Beach. I think we've done a remarkable job with community consultation. I'm just going to give you a few examples, but it's the Cottage Street studies, High Street revitalization, North Shore Park, Hellawell Park, Jubilee Park, Aquatic Wellness Center. I think the impact that this council's had and social media has had on our processes has been very valuable. And look at what happened with the Southampton Cenotaph Committee. I think there's been some good community consultation there as well. I'm concerned about lifeguarding, the amount of staffing availability for lifeguarding during the summer months with our wellness center. I'm just not sure it's the right fit. I'm concerned about parking. And I was concerned about parking in North Shore Park when that development was being talked about. And if you roll back the tape, I was concerned about that. And I'm concerned about this city Splash City Fun Park with parking at the south end of the beach. So I'm still struggling with this one. I'm lukewarm. I think at least we need to be taking this year to consult the public. If, perhaps council, I'm not sure what the vote is around the table about whether or not we should move forward with this at all, whether we should even get the community consultation. But so I'm not in support of it. I say lukewarm, and I think the more I think about it, I'm not able to support this one. So.
Councillor Stack?
Thank you. So I think my first point would be, I think community consultation comes through whether people spend their dollars here. So if this goes up and nobody spends money, I think consultation complete, it doesn't come back next year. So I'm a little concerned with, maybe I'm not concerned. I'll challenge the notion of community consultation because I think this is a private enterprise. And if this was not something that people want, they simply won't spend their money there and there won't be a business case for it. The second comment I had is I think we sort of have a lot of feedback in the community around opportunities for kids to do something. So I would argue, or I argue that this probably would provide something for kids to do at the beach. Because I think if you read some of the commentary online, there's strong opinions pro and strong opinions against. But I think some of the feedback would be, we often say, oh, kids just want to play at the beach, like just want to play in the sand. I don't know if you've spoken to a teenager, but teenagers don't get entertained for long periods of time playing in the sand. Like I know it works, but they sit at the break wall and they dive off the break wall and they, jump and play around the break wall, which is filled with rocks and all sorts of other things. So I think we just need to be sort of a bit more clear-eyed about how the beach is working today and what people actually may want and the benefit that a trial period could start. I did have a couple of comments just on liability. I think, my expectation would be there's going to be a waiver. This is a business, so insurance and safety, just from a practical business perspective, is going to be there. There's risk involved in anything we do. Typically, when you go skiing, there's a waiver on your pass. When you go bungee jumping, zip lining, anything you do that has any inherent risk, you're signing all sorts of, there's some sort of waiver being signed in order to do the activity. I don't know what the plan is here, but that is my expectation from just a business operations perspective. The one comment or clarification I'm just asking, I'm sorry, I didn't send this before. So if I heard correctly, this isn't actually something we approve, right? Like the federal government, the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans makes the decision. So I think we should just be clear here that we're actually deciding whether we want to do some sort of service kind of agreement to facilitate this, but it's actually not the town's decision whether this comes forward in terms of whether it can actually be placed there. There's appropriate depth and all that. So I think maybe I'm seeing nods from the CAO, just confirming that it's not actually our decision in that regard.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. As I mentioned, there'll be two agreements, right, in order to actualize the vision here. I guess I would agree with the statement that the government would approve the installation. I don't know that it can function without the town's approval as well. So I think both are required in order to make it successful. And I did just want to, if I may, make a comment on the liability piece, the insurance and the safety and those pieces that were coming up. Councillor Grace did send the question through to our solicitor today, and she did respond to it. And again, this has less liability for the town than some of the other events that we run, like things like women's triathlon or summer camps where they're actually on our property. In this case, it's not on our property. Our agreement with them is to facilitate the ticketing, the storage, those sorts of things. So in the pieces where we're talking about liability and waivers, that would be entirely between the proponent and those using the facilities and would not be in relationship to the town.
Mayor Charbonneau and then Councillor Mayette, or were you finished? Okay, sure, go ahead.
And sorry, my last comment is just on parking, because we hear that that's a discussion point we use every time, like that's raised every time we want to bring something new. Like we can't let parking impacts be a barrier to opportunities to make the community a bit more engaged, and certainly on the beach. Like I hear that argument about parking, and yet people find a way. You can bike, you can walk. There's a million ways to get to that beach. And I'd also like to point out that Port Elgin Main Beach, sort of as we envision it, sort of strictly that sort of main swath may not be enormous, but you know, the beach is public all the way up and down. So I think it's important to recognize when we're talking about towel space and access to the water that where those homes are all public beach. So there's nothing preventing people from moving down a bit more. So I think, again, when we talk about this, I don't like, and I challenge the argument around towel space, because there's plenty of, I use that beach all the time. When you pass sort of that one concrete pad, all of a sudden nobody uses the beach, because I think there's just this sort of perception that it's not a public beach, it's entirely public. And I also think parking, you know, you can find a parking spot up and down the street. It's not an impossibility. And I think often it's just an argument we have in our minds. And I think that shouldn't be the base upon which we don't, you know, at least investigate other opportunities. Thanks.
Mayor Charbonneau?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. My perspective on this is similar to Councillor Stack's. It's not very often that I get to talk about something here at Council that is of great interest to my sons, but this would be one of those things. And coming at it from their perspective, I think they would be really excited to see something like this at the beach and have an opportunity to go there and have a good time with their buddies at a facility like this. And I can say, and Councillor Stack, I think, said it right. If they go there and they don't enjoy it, then they won't go back, and the business won't last long. And so we'll know after a trial year whether it's a successful business or not, or whether it's a thing that works in any number of other ways or not. But you know, this is Port Elgin's main beach. It's an exciting place. It's an active place. It's the right place to have fun family attractions. We have lots of things on the main beach that are where people get charged to participate. You have to pay to have a boat in the harbor. You have to pay to get an ice cream cone from any of those stores down there, and that's all part of the experience down there at the beach. And this could be something, an added attraction out in the water for people, young people for the most part, to go out and have fun on. And I think, I think Councillor Stack is right. You know, we want to have a whole range of experiences down there for people of all ages, and this would add something, I think, that could be really good. And the direction, I believe, I don't have the resolution right in front of me, but I believe the direction is for the CAO for staff to continue conversations and negotiate an arrangement, and then for the CAO to sign a deal. But the CAO, in my estimation, would only sign that deal if those negotiations were successful and all the important questions were answered, and that the town was protected, and the things that councillors are raising here, the questions that councillors are raising here, were answered in a satisfactory way. So on my suggestion, my view is we should give that direction to staff to proceed with those discussions and see if we can have a year where we try this out on the main beach. I think guys like my sons and their buddies would enjoy it, and it'd be a good addition to the main beach. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I won't repeat a lot of the things I just heard, but I too think this is something that is worth exploring. It's new, it's different. The idea that it's going to block out the sunset is is kind of crazy. I think it actually gets deflated after closing time. It's one of those things that's going to add to the experience. But one of the things that occurred to me that I didn't hear already was currently we don't have lifeguards on the beach. And with this facility, although their main focus is going to be the participants on there, if somebody was to get into trouble in proximity at the beach or swimming or something like that, I'm pretty sure the trained people at this facility would be more than willing to assist. So we're not only adding enhancing the experience at the beach, we're actually enhancing the safety at essentially no cost to the town. So if it doesn't work, it won't come back next year, but I think it's worth a try. I know that when I was 14 years old, this would be something that I'd be pretty excited about going to as well. I'm not sure if I'll do it now, but I'll certainly watch. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to make a couple of comments and ask some questions, and then Councillor Davinsky will come back to you. I, like Councillor Grace, took a look at all of the other places that were on the list and was really intrigued at the situation at some of these places. They're all inland except for Port Colborne, and Port Colborne was fairly sheltered. Most of them had a 5-page waiver that was expected to be signed. I have a copy of the one from St. Mary's right here. The company that we're dealing with, there was a 1-page waiver, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if the 5 pages could have been shrunk down to 1 page, but it was a pretty extensive waiver that was required to be signed by a parent of anybody under the age of 18 who was participating. And all of them had requirements about younger children had to be accompanied by an adult when they participated. And also in some cases, there was an expectation of a swimming test prior to them being able to participate on the apparatus. I feel that, we're being rushed and that there's a lot of questions. There's no mention here in our report about if there are water advisories. One of the other sites, or actually a couple of them, mentioned the protocols and the process if there's water advisories. I can't remember how many we had at the Port Elgin Main Beach, or if we've had any last year, but certainly, I think there's an awful lot to do with the safety, and many of them mentioned about the kinds of things that they use to clean the apparatus. We didn't get any information about that. What are we putting in the water, as well as an inflatable? So I have a lot of concerns there. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt has left the room, but he used the expression lukewarm. I actually looked up the average lake temperatures. There's a website called seatemperatures.net. They do this for around the world, and the average in June was 9.91 degrees Celsius was the average for Port Elgin. And their explanation was that it was very cold and can cause pain and not recommended for more than 5 to 10 minutes. In July, the average temperature, again, from this seatemperatures.net, was 17.8 degrees Celsius, which is 64.04 degrees Fahrenheit. And it feels cold. This is their explanation. Feels cold in comparison to a swimming pool. With some experience and practice, could be comfortable to be in the water for longer than 10 or 15 minutes. August, the average temperature, again, from seatemperatures.net in Port Elgin, was 20.16 degrees Celsius, which translates to 68.29 degrees Fahrenheit. And in this case, they did say that it was pleasant to swim in. I hear often about how cold it is in the pool, the temperature. So taking a look at the average temperatures of the lake, I'm curious how this company would deal with hypothermia requests in June, because that water's cold. And we don't have any indication. I appreciated Councillor Myatt's comments about the lifeguards. For what it's worth, we do not provide rescue service or marine service on the lake. That is the OPP's responsibility through their marine unit, which the closest one is based in Kincardine or comes from Wyerton, or the Canadian Coast Guard. Their bases are in Tobermory or Goderich. We, of course, have some firefighters who are trained and will be going through training, but that's not our responsibility to provide service on the lake. We do not at the moment, where my police service board chair, we do not have a section 14 agreement with the OPP associated with marine stuff. So there's a couple of big question marks. If something were to happen there, where is the support supposed to come from? And I have concerns about that. I have concerns about security overnight. I have concerns about the size of the space that this would take up, because it's not just the apparatus itself. There's a cordoned off area, and that's evident in the photographs of the other parks that I took a look at from the list that was provided to us. They all have a big space around them. And there's a dedicated, someone referred to it as a path. There's a dedicated, I call it a trough, that provides access. And it is a space thing, and I don't know how it's going to fit there. The staging area, you can put the ticket kiosk into the beach house, but there still would have to be a staging area right at where this trough or this pathway, this access route comes up to the shore. And it's 2-hour intervals, based on what I saw from the presentation back in December and looking at their sites in other parts of the province. So you're out there for 2 hours, and then they kind of, I believe they just shift everybody. So there would be a staging area, a requirement to have some space right at this access point to enable that. And there'd also have to be signage somewhere. So I just think that it's an interesting idea to me because, as Councillor Stack said, it's good to imagine activities, and the mayor also, for age groups that maybe we're lacking, things in the community. I personally would prefer that, we try and get some good ideas and get some partners to do some things off the lakeshore, so that when it's too cold or when the waves are too high, or maybe when there is an advisory on the lake, there's something else for people to do in our community. So I'm not supportive of this right now, because I do think it's being rushed. I do feel that there's an awful lot of questions. And I do think that the federal government requires some kind of letter of support from us prior to an agreement because of the connection with the shore. And I just think it's being very rushed. So I'm not supportive of this year. However, I think if we can get some answers to questions and get some really good ideas about how the safety and security of participants is taken care of, that perhaps doesn't require some of our firefighters jumping into the lake on their Zodiac or whatever, when it's not our jurisdiction out there. Anyway, Councillor Davinsky, if you wanted to re-ask your questions, we do have the proponent online, and then I'll come back to Councillor Stack.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think the questions have been answered. I think the CAO gave reasonable answers, and so I'll let it go from there. And I believe Councillor Stack has wanted to speak.
Okay, Councillor Stack.
Yeah, I'm feeling feisty today. So I just wanted to address sort of, Deputy Mayor, your comments around the safety. Like, let's just be entirely clear. Like, the cold water exists today. It exists last summer. It existed the summer before. People use the lake. The risk to the lake exists, whether this facility exists or not. So I'm struggling a bit with, like, I just feel like we're being a bit of fun police right now, if I'm being totally honest. Like, we have an issue. There's not a lot of activities for kids to do in the summer. Like, that is just point blank. We are 2 hours from major city. Kids who can't drive, can't go to Owen Sound to go to a movie. There's just not a ton to do. This offers an opportunity to see if it's something that's of interest of kids. And we're sitting here talking about worrying about the temperature of water, access to marine rescue, as if these aren't risks that exist today at the lake. So I'm just a bit frustrated that every time there's an opportunity to do something, we talk about these issues as if they don't exist today. So by that logic, we should just shut down the beach unless it's August and the water's 20 degrees C, because otherwise there's a risk of cold water, there's a risk. And oh, by the way, if you can't swim, and you don't have proper lifeguard, like you don't have flotation devices, you shouldn't be allowed near the shore because there's a risk. Like, I just think we're getting, if we don't want this because we think it doesn't look pretty and that's the basis upon which we want to make the decision, then let's just say that. Because I don't think it's reasonable to say that there's a cold water risk, there's a safety risk, because those risks exist today. So I just want to be clear, like, I think it's pretty clear what my position is on this. Like, let's see if the opportunity works. Let's see if kids and families want to use it. If they don't, pop it, get it out, it won't come back. But these arguments that we're concerned about safety and security when these risks exist today, I don't think that's the basis upon which we should be making decisions, because that's not how people make risk-informed decisions when they go to the beach every day.
I would like to point out that the two parks or facilities that were mentioned in the appendix, both of those facilities resulted from an RFP process. And here we are, we had an unsolicited presentation and we're reacting to it. If we think that we need more activities, I believe we should do things properly and put it out there and see what other interests we might get, and then have a much more fulsome discussion. But are there any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Let's see. We have a recommendation. The council directs staff to continue to negotiate with the proponent, to execute an agreement, and that council authorized the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer, to enter into a one-year agreement with Splash City Fun Park Incorporated for the operation of a water park in 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Stack, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Are there any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the recommendation? All those opposed? The motion is defeated. Okay. 9.2 on the agenda is related to the opposition to amendments to Ontario Regulation 530/22 to the Strong Mayor powers, which on April the 9th, 2025, the Ontario Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing announced the expansion of Strong Mayor powers to 169 additional municipalities, including the town of Saugeen Shores. This expansion would be effective May the 1st, 2025, and I will look to the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer, for the report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for introducing the report, and I'll review the Strong Mayor powers, and then I would be happy to turn it over to the mayor to talk about the attachments to tonight's report, which is a letter to the province regarding our opposition to the Strong Mayor powers. Strong Mayor powers is something that the province has been advancing since about 2023. It rolled out initially to the City of Ottawa and the City of Toronto, and then moved from there to around 47 municipalities that had housing targets that were associated with the Strong Mayor powers. Since about a week or so ago, so this has come at us pretty quickly, the province has announced that they're rolling this out to another 169 additional municipalities, which includes the town of Saugeen Shores. What is different about this compared to the previous announcements is that this is available for a commenting period, and it's open until Wednesday this week. The previous announcements to those 47 municipalities did not include any commenting on that. The Strong Mayor powers, just quickly, I'll go through some of those, allows the mayor to appoint the municipality's chief administrative officer, hire certain municipal department heads and establish reorganizations of departments, create committees of councils, assigning functions, appointing chairs and vice chairs, proposing the municipal budget, which would be subject to council amendments and a separate head of council veto and council override process. The mayor would be able to propose certain municipal bylaws if the mayor is of the opinion that the proposed bylaw would advance those provincial priorities that were identified. And those provincial priorities were those that were supportive of housing around infrastructure, transit, road, utilities, and service things. The mayor would also have certain veto powers if the mayor is of the opinion that part of a bylaw could potentially interfere with those provincial priorities. And the mayor is responsible to bring forward matters to council as the head of council if they're of the opinion that the matter could potentially advance a provincial priority. So again, the report does go into detail on all of those. I'm not going to go into those myself. But I just, again, want to highlight that this came at us pretty quickly as of middle of last week. Was able to have a meeting with a mayor, or the mayor, sorry, and also a solicitor who works in this space, who gave us some advice on how to handle the situation. And so while I provided the background to the strong mayors, this report also comes from the mayor and his recommendation that we submit a letter in opposition to the strong mayor powers to the province. So with your permission, Chair, I'm sure the mayor would like to speak to that.
Mayor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and it's fitting tonight that you're in the chair, Deputy Mayor, because I think it demonstrates that local government in small municipalities is a team sport, and it involves all members of the team, and every member of council is elected and plays a vital role. And I think, and I've been quoted a fair bit in the media on this, so I won't, and I'm sure you're aware of my opinion. I think if the goal is to advance housing or to advance infrastructure or any number of other provincial priorities, I think it is wrong to say that the problems that we have in those areas are caused because we have elected officials, right? Or that we need to somehow shove aside people who have an elected mandate from the people in order to advance things that are priorities. That's never been my experience on this council, or any other council or body I've served on. When things are a high priority, councils act quickly, and they act collaboratively, and they make the right decisions for the community, in my opinion, invariably. So I think it's I just think this is not a very good idea. It is a thing that comes from larger cities, typically American cities. And I think that, I think that may work for the governance in New York City or Chicago, or even maybe Toronto, but I don't think having a mayor that is with the powers to introduce the budget or hire and fire senior staff or reorganize the organization at a whim is something that makes sense in a small community like ours. So the right thing to do, and I've proposed a letter to you this evening, is to make that point to the province and ask the minister not to impose these powers in Saugeen Shores. So I ask you to endorse that letter this evening. I think that between now and May 1st, the right thing to do is to push as hard as we can, not to have the powers imposed. If they are imposed on the 1st of May, I think we will need to seek some greater advice, some advice from solicitors, like the individual that the CAO just referenced, to tell council and to advise me on how to appropriately delegate the authorities of the mayor back to the CAO and to council, and also some things that can't be delegated, how to handle those things, like, for example, the introduction of the budget. So we'll have more discussion on that if it comes to pass on the 1st of May. But I guess it's important to note, and I just want to be clear that although it's my intent, should the powers be implemented to delegate those authorities, it's important to remember that because they're given to an individual, nothing prevents a mayor from simply changing their mind at a whim, which is what's so sort of difficult about these powers, in that, you can say you're delegating them one day, and then the next day you can go ahead and fire a senior administrator and just say, well, I've rescinded my my delegation of those authorities. And so the best thing to have happen is for these powers never to be conferred, so that can never come to pass, because I worry about that outcome. But so I'm asking council to push for that today, and we'll hope the minister listens to us between now and the 1st of May. Those are my comments. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Any member wish to speak? Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I applaud our mayor for this letter and for articulating such strong arguments about why the legislation should be rejected. Cutting red tape seems to be the catch-all argument the majority provincial government uses to justify whatever changes it wants to push through. Several years ago was eradicating municipal heritage registers. Now it's giving 169 more municipalities mayors needless sweeping powers to add to the almost 50 that have been given this power all unasked since 2022. Red tape, maybe it takes a bit longer, but that's the price of democracy. I'm not sure what the provincial government's end game is here, but these powers are undemocratic, and I'm proud that Mayor Charbonneau is not just accepting them without protest. If our council supports the mayor's letter, I guess my question is, may we, then this might be to our clerk, may we send the mayor's letter and share it with the rest, with other municipalities in Ontario? I think it's important to encourage municipalities across the province to speak out about this dangerous trend. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly, if that is the direction of council, we'd be more than happy to share this with all municipalities across Ontario.
Councillor Grace? Oh. We don't actually have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
But so, yeah, we can wait till it gets there, but we won't forget. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to thank Mayor Charbonneau, and I think one of the key things he mentioned is that, team sport that involves all members of council operating as a team. And we do that. I really do believe we do that around this council table, and we do it well. And I think the community at large needs to be consulted, for such a major change. So I think we're doing the right thing. It's shared leadership. Our existing approach to local governance is working in my view. And thank you for taking this stance. And I've talked to you a few days ago about this, and you are to be commended. Other mayors around the province, I'm sure, would grab this opportunity and seize the moment and seize the power, to do what they like to do. I mean, approving budgets, singular, and hiring and firing a CAO or any staff member just boggles my mind. And that's not what our voters bargained for. And why have the voters not had some say in this? So I think the province need to do a whole lot better job with consulting members of the public in this power that they want to give mayors. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for speaking up and not supporting this.
Any other members wish to speak? Well, just before I read the recommendation, I just wanted to comment that Mayor Charbonneau got elected first to the Saugeen Shores Council at the same time that I did. And I've never questioned why he's been a member of council. I think that one of the things about this strong mayor situation, it sets up the potential for a different attitude in terms of running for council. And I've never questioned why any of us are here, but in particular with Luke, with Mayor Charbonneau, when he first ran, we were here for the right reasons, and it was to contribute to the success of Saugeen Shores. And the team sport idea fits into that. But I think that all of us around this table, that's why we're here. And so it, in some ways, when I first saw the letter from the province, it was discounting the rest of us who sit around this table. And I think that that's wrong because we're all here to contribute to the success of our community. So having said that, we do have a recommendation here, which is the council direct the mayor to submit the attached correspondence, Strong Mayor's letter to the province, to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as the town of Saugeen Shore comments on the proposed amendments to Ontario Regulation 530 /22, and that council direct the mayor with the support of staff to research available options to delegate strong mayor authority should it come into effect May the 1st, 2025. And I believe we can add a comment here that we will circulate our letter, the mayor's letter, to other municipalities in Ontario. Does that take care of it, Dawn? Okay, can I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Davinsky, seconded by Councillor Grace. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Davinsky?
Can we add Lisa Thompson to that list as well?
She's already on the letter. But,
Oh, is she?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Madam Deputy
yeah,
Mayor.
the letter at the bottom, it's CC to Lisa Thompson, MPP, Minister of Rural Affairs, and Rob Flack, MPP, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and us, and we've added in circulation much more broadly. Oh, and the mayor would like to speak too, again.
Just wanted to ask, it was drafted originally to address to the premier. I don't know if it still is. After having the conversation late last week with the lawyer, I think it would be better if it were addressed to the minister directly. So if that change hasn't already been made, I would ask that it be made.
I think we can do that. Yeah, we can make both changes. Any other comments? So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's carried unanimously, by the way. 9.3 on the agenda is the new sign bylaw. On January the 27th, 2025, a draft sign bylaw was brought forward to council for review. And tonight we have Josh Plantz with us, the chief building official, to give us a report on the actual bylaw. Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm here tonight to present a new sign bylaw to council. On January 27th, a draft sign bylaw was brought forward to council for review and comment. The draft bylaw was also circulated to the Committee of Adjustment, the BIA, and the Chamber of Commerce for their review. The new sign bylaw has been updated with an attempt to address the concerns that arose during the review and circulation phase.
Josh, can I get you to speak right into the microphone?
Sorry.
And Luke, if you can't hear very well, if you can somehow make a sign, thank you.
Can you hear me better here? All right. The report details the main concerns that were voiced and the logic behind the changes. I am here to answer any questions regarding the report or the bylaw.
Thank you for that. Well, we do have a recommendation that we adopt bylaw 32-2025, a bylaw regulating signs in the municipality. Any comments, questions about the bylaw that's before us? I have a couple. No one wants to speak to the signs. I wanted to commend Josh and Dana Mitchell, and I know the CAO, Kara Van Mile, was involved in this too, for taking into consideration council comments about the height of freestanding ground signs in the highway commercial zone. So I'm not particularly 100% confident or supportive of what's here, but separating the two zones to the 60 kilometers or less with a sign height of 3.65 meters, which is an increase from the current 2.5 meters. And then having 80 kilometer zones have a different requirement. it's a creative way to deal with it, and I guess I'm willing to accept that. I had questions though, and I did give a call to Josh earlier today. Maybe Josh, can you just comment on how, if the bylaw passes, how we will communicate or provide some awareness, education to the community about some things that are in the sign bylaw and just how that will roll out. Can you do that, please?
Yes, thank you for the question. Like most bylaws, we'll try and do a more simplified handout to deal with the main issues and make it more of a simplified, more obtainable document. So that document will post on the website and we'll also push it out through social media. So you don't have to read through the whole bylaw. It should be more simplified for the public.
Thank you for that. I very much appreciate your comments because one of the concerns I had was that the whole thing about having to apply for a permit is way down in the bylaw. So, you know, you have to read through some exemptions from applying before you actually figure out how you can actually apply. So I think the awareness campaign will be there. I had some questions and concerns about repeat offenders with particular reference to signage that ends up on utility poles. I think it's very clear in here that that's not allowed. I also have over the years had questions about third-party signage. Again, there's pretty strong language in here about that. And so I welcome the new bylaw with some changes, and we'll watch and see what the height on freestanding signs comes to. But any other comments, Councillor Mayette?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. Josh, the signs that I find conspicuously missing from the examples here, and maybe you can confirm what I'm thinking, is the billboard type signs. Like there's one by the one restaurant there. It's quite a large billboard. And then as you go further down towards North Bruce, there's a couple more that are set back in the fields. Are those not included in the bylaw because they're outside of the commercial zone and maybe because they're on the highway instead of on town streets?
Thank you for the question. Currently, we restrict billboards. So anything that was existing at the time of the bylaw was allowed to remain, but we do not allow for new billboards.
Any other comments? But I still move in a second. Okay. So the recommendation is that council adopt bylaw 32/2025, a bylaw regulating signs in the municipality. Moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Vice Deputy Mayor Mayette. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. We'll actually vote on the bylaw a little bit later on in the agenda. 9.4 on the agenda relates to a temporary stop sign at Ridge Street at Bruce Road, on Ridge Street at Bruce Road 25. And I will look to Director Mark Polly to present this report. It has to do with the Goddard Street resurfacing project, which is underway. And Ridge Street has been designated as an alternate detour route leading to Road 25. And this report, I'll let Mark speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think that was a good start to the summary. I won't add a lot to that. The idea is to establish a stop sign at the intersection of Ridge Street and Bruce 25, which will facilitate the Ridge Street functioning as an alternative detour during the construction of the resurfacing of Goddard Street. And I think that's the extent of the remarks we wanted to make at this point. The reports as presented. Available for questions. And joining us is Lucas Heathers, our Supervisor of Engineering Services, if there are any technical aspects to your questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members? Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. So just to be clear, it's a one-way stop sign. It's not going to be stop on County Road 25. Oh.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, that is correct.
Mayor Charbonneau?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to clarify, you in your preamble used the word temporary. Just to clarify, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but this won't be a temporary stop sign at Ridge Street. It'll be there permanently unless when we do the traffic study to permanently open Ridge Street, we decide to put a roundabout in that location, but otherwise, council's approval wouldn't be necessary if it wasn't a permanent stop sign. So just to clarify, this is a permanent stop sign at this location. Am I correct?
I think I was bedazzled by all the temporary stops that have come into play that I just used temporary in there. So you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davinsky?
Yes, I agree with Mayor Charbonneau on that, that it shouldn't be temporary. Am I allowed at this time, or should I be waiting to comment on the other stops, the stop signs we have put in throughout the community? Waterloo, Bricker,
They're not
Bruce.
really on the agenda.
So you're telling me to keep quiet?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. See, I didn't even say it. I
No.
just sent it over there.
You're in the big chair. I tried to challenge you.
I think maybe the mayor mentioned a transportation master plan process that's coming up. So there'll be lots of time to talk about transportation issues and stop signs during the process.
No problem.
Thank you. And I apologize for using the word temporary. It's, again, lots of temporary stop signs. This is not one of them. Anyway, we have a recommendation that council adopt bylaw 33-2025, a bylaw authorizing a stop sign at the intersection of Ridge Street and Bruce County Road 25. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Stack. All those in favor? That's carried. I've been asked, it's 8:45. I've been asked to take a little break here. So it is 8:42. So can we reconvene? 8:45. We will reconvene at 9 o'clock. Well, you said 15 minutes. 8:50. 8:50. Okay, 8:50 it is. So Luke, don't go too far. So, I guess we'll reconvene. I know it's council, okay. So we're at the consent agenda. So we have 5 items on the consent agenda. So the recommendation is that items 10.1 through 10.5 be approved and received for information. We can certainly isolate out and speak to any of them. Okay. Well, how about we just I think we're still figuring out this whole consent agenda thing. So, okay, so we've got the recommendation will cover them all, but certainly we can have questions about any of them. So Vice Deputy Mayor first, he has a question 10.1, park washroom design concepts, and Frank Burrows, the manager of parks and facilities, is here. So go ahead.
Thank
Vice
you,
Deputy.
Deputy Mayor, and through you to Frank. Frank, I commend you for this. I think it's a good idea to have a standard look, with our washroom facility, makes for maintenance purposes and ability to close down certain sections and so on and so forth. One of the questions I had, Frank, was, well, a couple actually. There was a comment about under Hallowell Park. You talked about the approved budget and timeline for it. The facility would be expected to be operational Q2 of 2026, which is great. When they go back up to Lamont Sports Park, you talk about phase 1 and phase 2. And I have a couple of questions about Lamont, but the phase 1 and phase 2, Frank, what are you referring to? Are you referring to phase 1 that happened 2 years ago, you mean, and phase 2 that's just going to open up this year? Is that what you're referring to? Okay. And the time frame for opening the washroom facility is what for Lamont?
Well, Mike has to turn his mic off, then yours should work. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the question. So phase 1 was original phase 1 of Lamont Sport Park, and phase 2 is the 2 new diamonds. So you mean?
So my question, Frank, is phase 1, phase 2, are we still on schedule for the large scale washroom that's part of phase 2 in with the 2 new diamonds? Is that going out to tender soon? And I like the idea of what you're suggesting here. But phase 2, the large scale washroom, is happening this year. And the second part of that question is, you talked about a smaller scale washroom. Are you talking about a smaller scale washroom at the north end of the Cloverleaf, the 4 diamonds at the north end? Are you talking about 2 potentially washroom facilities there?
Yes, thank you for the question. Our priority at Lamont is a larger washroom in existing phase 2, and that'll be the larger scaled one, 6 to 8 pods is the priority. If there is funding, we're going to consider a small, maybe just a single pod in the phase 1, but that's depending on the costing of the larger washroom that comes in first. And we're going to go to design right now, and with tendering, and to start a construction in Q3, Q4 of this year, and make them operational by Q2 of 26.
Thank you for that, Frank. And I think that there are a lot of ball players, and I'm going to say this without offending anyone, but women ball players who have said, wouldn't it be nice to have, instead of the Johnny on the spots, to have an actual flush toilet washing facility at the north end of the complex. So I think your idea is great. I've had lots of people ask me that question. In addition to the large scale washroom for phase 2, 6 pods will also be a smaller flush toilet facility at the north end of the 4 diamonds. I think that would be great if we're able to pull that off financially within that 750. The other question I had, Frank, is with your drawings, which I again commend you for. None of your drawings include urinals, and my question is Yeah, the pods, we've got stalls, you know, on the women's side, there's 4 or 6 stalls. But on the men's side, there's 4 or 6 stalls, no urinals. Is that by, what are you thinking there? What's, will there, well, I guess the question is, will there be urinals? Because they're not in the drawings.
Yes, thank you for the question. In the detailed design, we're going to consider that. We did bring that up in the staff discussions and getting the detailed fixtures in each of the pods. I can see some of them having urinals and maybe the larger one as well having urinals, but we'll address that detail in the detailed architectural stage.
Perfect. And again, I commend you. I think having a standard design for washroom facilities in Saugeen Shores is a good way to go. I know, so it's taken some time to get here, but it was worth the wait.
Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and Frank. Thank you for the report. It's a good one. You mentioned, as the Vice Deputy Mayor said, could we have some portable porta potties or whatever at the north end of Lamont Park rather than nothing at all. And you mentioned, well, there's a cost factor in that if we're going to build it ourselves and so on. Could we reduce the size of the one that's central to both parks, leave the 2 universals in, leave washroom 1 and 3 in, maybe take out 2 and 4 and use that money that we would possibly save on that to build us a couple of nice washrooms to the north of the facility.
I just want to remind council, and if you turn your mic off, I'm sure Mr. Burrows will have a response, but I just want to remind council that the item here is about the park washroom design concepts. It's not specific to actual installations. It's just to have, I believe, like an idea of a standard going forward. So perhaps drilling down into what actually might end up in a particular location. I don't think this is what this report is about, but Frank, feel free to comment.
Yes, thank you. I can make a comment because one of the elements you touch on is the benefits of standardization of design gives us scalability, so we can have anything from 1 pod to 10 to 12 pods and everything in between. So another critical question is something that we have some confidence in the budget. We've been surprised that what we would like, we don't want to spend the money to get that nice expensive style. So part of this exercise is trying to understand what the costs are and making sure that we build something that's within budget. So we can scale, and that's why we'd start with a large scale version at Lamont's phase 2, for example. That was the priority, and if we could afford a smaller one, we would put a smaller one in phase 1 at the north end. I think no matter what, at a large park such as Lamont's, because it's kind of unique, we would always have portable toilets spread out in the north end, even if we can't build a proper washroom there just because of the distance. So at the bare minimum, that we'd have a large central modern washroom and maybe a smaller one, but definitely at least portable ones where it's a distance from the main washroom. So that gives us the whole spectrum. We also have the prefabricated design, which you speak about in this report, that's another option too, which is sort of between a portable washroom and the nice block building. And that's a much different price point. So that's really gives us all those options.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And I love the concept here of being the same everywhere and some being smaller than others, depending on the park. It's a great report. I apologize for bringing up something specific like that, but when you gotta go, you gotta go.
And we're going to go over to Councillor Mayette right now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, I would just like to draw council's attention to the correspondence number number 4, which is from the Bruce Gray Poverty Task Force. Just, if you haven't already, and I'm sure all of you have, but maybe some people that are watching haven't had the opportunity to peruse that report. There is a lot of good information there, and I know Jill Umbach personally, and I know that she works very, very hard doing tangible things in the region of Gray and Bruce, and so they talk about the housing and the food and security issues, and they do a lot of studies. I get invited to their meetings from time to time, after just recently rejoining the United Way Board of Directors. So I just like to make sure that everybody has a good look at that and see that there are actual things going on. You hear people saying all the time that we're not doing anything, or we're not doing enough about homelessness, or we're not doing enough about food security. Well, there is things going on, and I know their committee is supported by the county. Both Gray and Bruce counties put money into keeping that committee going, but so does the United Way. She's actually an employee of the United Way. So if you're wondering how you might individually support the initiatives that are described in that correspondence, giving to the United Way is a good way of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we leave 10.1 completely, can I just ask, and then Councillor Grace, I'll go to you, the Helliwell idea, the way that this pod system would work, because we heard tonight about some potential improvement in numbers that could happen at Helliwell for soccer over the next few years. The pod idea would enable another element to be just added on should there be a need for the expansion of the facility. Is that the idea with the pods?
That is one option, yes. And you also could do some work on scaling what you need right now. So it may be more than 2, we may go with 4. And you can also have the option of adding storage, for example, in one of the pods. So I know we get asked a lot about storage, so that's an option too, which is quite economical.
Thank you. Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask a question based on the correspondence listed in 10.5.7. This is the correspondence from Ralph Lynch. So Mr. Lynch was writing a letter representing the Southampton Community Cenotaph Committee. And one of his requests is that all donors to the original proposal be offered a full refund of their contributions. So I guess my question is for staff, based on that, on his request, what will happen with the money that was contributed based on the assumption that that committee's project was going to go forward? Thanks.
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. To be honest with you, I don't know if I have a really great answer at this point in time. I had similar thoughts crossing my mind with tonight's presentation, that we will have to take a look at the fundraising dollars that have come in. I know others have indicated to me as well that their fundraising was based on the original concept, and so I anticipate they will be requesting those funds returned. In which case we also need to get a cost estimate for what was put forward and approved tonight. And then I would imagine that needs to come back to council for funding consideration.
Thank you. Would the $125,000 that council sort of set aside and earmarked, that would still be available, correct?
Apologies, I don't have that answer right now. I'm not even sure what year it was in the budget. So, but we'll bring a report back with all of it clarified.
Councillor Davinsky?
Yes, looking at 10.3 stopgap. What with the work being ready to go on High Street in Southampton, some people have been asking, when we do the sidewalks, will we comply with the AODA? And I know some businesses, I think there's only 4 or 5 that actually use the stopgap ramp right now. do we know if the work on the sidewalks will eliminate that use, or will it still be in existence? Oh, sorry.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. Having been involved in a number of redevelopments in downtowns, I can tell you that it's very difficult for the construction of the main street to address the grade difference between the sidewalk and the business proper. A lot of times that would require a major renovation to the business front that isn't contemplated as part of this work. I think if there's minor grade differences that can be accommodated, they will do that. But those businesses that have a step or two steps up, that's where this stopgap program comes in, obviously just for the one step. But that's where the stopgap program comes in, because the road is where the road is and those front doors are where the front door is. And it's hard to accommodate or change that grade difference without a step in place.
To follow up on that, through you, Deputy Mayor, to yourself and to Rachel Stack, you're both chairs or have been chairs of the Accessibility Committee. How successful has the stopgap been in Southampton? Are most businesses taking advantage of this? I don't know which one should answer, Deputy Mayor, you or Councillor Stack.
I think the report is about doing the survey of the places that have participated to
Yes.
get the information that you're
Well, a
asking.
heck of a lot of places in
Yeah.
Southampton.
But
That's why I'm
I
asking.
think, yeah, I think that's what this report is saying is in the works. Is the survey to get the feedback to answer your question.
Okay, can I hear from Councillor Stack on this?
Sure, but
So I won't speak to the survey results, but I know we did, during my tenure as chair, we did talk a lot about the benefits. And I think one of the things, and I think it's in the report is, or maybe I'm making that up, going back out and soliciting feedback on ongoing use. So I think the next step is let's hear what businesses have to say. I think initially the project was quite successful because I can speak to when we looked at Southampton, the grade issues that the CAO made reference to are pretty dramatic in some of the spots. So I think, to your point, Councillor, there's an opportunity if businesses are interested in revitalizing the program, because to your point, there's a lot of access challenges in the storefronts that would be made better with those ramps for sure.
Okay, my point there was I did look at that list of participating businesses and there's only 5 from Southampton. We certainly have many more businesses than that on the core block. So I was just wondering, thank you very much.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Councillor Davinsky. I was on the committee, the Accessibility Committee, when that program started. And I actually went out and measured the difference between, the height of the steps. And one reason there were only 5 businesses is because there was such a dramatic difference between the sidewalk and the step that would be necessary. And it was going to be very difficult to construct. All of those stopgap ramps were custom made by Bud's class at the high school. And some of them the grade would just be too steep to make it practical. So that's one reason why there are only 5 that have it.
Thank you. And I brought it up because this is the year 2025 that the AODA is supposed to kick in for everyone. And if we have businesses out here that aren't adhering to it, I hope they are punished because of this sidewalk grade that we're talking about. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So just to provide a little bit of clarity that the, shall we say, enforcement of the AODA for our private business does not fall to the municipality, with the exception, of course, when there's a construction project that is occurring. So it's not like bylaw enforcement goes out to enforce the AODA. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah, I had a couple, just on the road naming list, I just wanted to, the very last name on the list was Doris Manley. Her name is Manley, just to have that be in the record. But on the communications list, a couple things, and I don't mean to put the vice deputy mayor on the spot, but in the number 2 on that list, the minutes from a meeting back in February, I was pretty excited to see that starting at the end of this year, cardboard will get picked up in the blue boxes.
I know, Morgan just asked me to turn it on. There you go.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
live.
Oh, yeah, just, Luke, if you didn't hear all of that, we're having a little technical difficulty with the microphones, but it was in reference to the Basra minutes, and the vice deputy mayor is going to speak.
Yeah, well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I did attend the February meeting and asked several questions. One was about the non-eligible sources, which takes effect on January 1st, 2026. And effective in the public, it's important for the public to know this, it's a great question, is that your cardboard now will be placed out at curbside and into your blue box. So Bruce Area Waste Recycling will be picking up cardboard at curbside effective January 1st, 2026. I've asked Vince, the manager, to come to speak to council actually in May, June, and I think that's in the works. The staff are working on that. I think the May meeting perhaps, just to talk about how plans are coming along with recycling, taking effect, the big change really, January 1st, 2026, because keep in mind, the businesses now will have to look after their own cardboard. So we're still working on that. We're taking an inventory right now of the businesses out there that make use of cardboard recycling, and some may have to go to tender and find competitive price and pick up their cardboard, especially the ones that are the big users of cardboard. I won't name the businesses, but there are some out there that have a lot of cardboard. So that's a big change, and there'll be, I think the manager of Bruce Area Waste Recycling will give us a lot of answers in May, June.
Well, thanks for that. The other one that I noticed, and I'll channel my inner Councillor Halpin here, the SVCA, and I don't know if Councillor Myatt can speak to this, there was reference in their communication about their tree planting opportunities. I didn't know if there was any way that the town of Saugeen Shores could tap into that potential, perhaps on some plots of vacant town land. I don't know if it's intended for municipalities, and I didn't ask in advance, but there was a comment about tree planting opportunities through the Conservation Authority. So I hope there might be a potential for us, and if there is, that we somehow realize it. There might be some land somewhere that we could put a couple hundred seedlings on. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if you want to speak to that, Dave, if you know anything. Okay. Any other comments related to any of these items? So then the motion would be, the recommendation is that items 10.1 through 10.5 be approved and received for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Counselor Mayette, seconded by Counselor Grace. All those in favor? That's carried. Item 12 on the agenda, it is recommended that council move into a closed to public session to discuss and provide direction on a number of items. So the recommendation is that council move into a closed to public session in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, subsection 2. Item 1, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations. And item J, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information that belongs to the municipality or local board and has monetary value or potential monetary value. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Stack. All those in favor? We will go into closed. Okay, I'm going to resume our regular council meeting and I will report. So the recommendation is that council arise from the closed public session and resume the regular council meeting. I will report, we need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Stack, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Okay, so we're back in open, and I will report that during the closed public session, council approved closed to public minutes. Council discussed matters relative to negotiations regarding an amending agreement with SON and discussed negotiations with Westario Power. It was also recommended to adopt bylaw 36-2025, a bylaw to authorize the deputy mayor and the clerk to sign the amending agreement with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation regarding reconciliation property. So the recommendation is that council adopt bylaw 36-2025, a bylaw to authorize the deputy mayor and clerk to sign the amending agreement with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Stack, seconded by Councillor Mayette. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so then we move on to bylaws. There are 3 bylaws here. So the bylaw, okay, so there are 4 bylaws that will fit in here. Bylaw 32-2025, the sign bylaw 33-2025, which is amending the traffic bylaw to create the stop sign at Ridge Street and Bruce County Road 25. Bylaw 34-2025, which is adopting a purchasing and procurement policy, and bylaw 36-2025, which is a bylaw to authorize the deputy mayor and clerk to sign the amending agreement with SON. So the recommendation is that these 4 bylaws are hereby read, passed, and sealed this 14th day of April 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Stack. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Then we have bylaw 35-2025, which confirms the proceedings of April the 14th, 2025. So the recommendation is that bylaw 35-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 14th day of April 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Davinsky, seconded by Councillor Stack. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. I am noticing you shake your head, Luke, by the way. The adjournment recommendation is that this regular council meeting of April the 14th, 2025 hereby adjourns at 9:36 p.m. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by the mayor, Mayor Charbonneau, and seconded by Councillor Stack. All in favor? We are now adjourned. Thank you very much for your indulgence.